Hello Taurus, and welcome to your year 2023 deep dive special forecast. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. Now, what I'm going to do is outline to you how I'm going to structure this video, but also give you a few strands that I'm going to be focusing on. Essentially, there are 4 cardinal quadrants that are involved in each year. That's 13 weeks long, and they're triggered by each of the equinoxes and solstices. But of course, the year begins on the 1st of January, which doesn't match that astrological pattern, which begins usually around the 20th or 21st of March with the vernal equinox. So what I'm going to do is break this year into the following. I'm going to look at what the lunar eclipse in your sign gave us, the powerful total lunar eclipse on the 8th of November 2022, because that was a 6-month backdrop. And of course, the first month and 3 quarters was still in 22, but the energy is still active in the first 4 months of the new year. I'm then going to look at Cardinal Quadrant 4 from year 2022, the winter solstice of the 21st of December, because that provides a framework for the following 12 weeks, because obviously we lose around about a week and a bit in the old year. Because Western tropical astrology is predicated on the seasons. So right through the first quarter of this year, in fact, it's actually the last quarter of the astrological year. I'm then going to outline to you the solar return, so the backdrop energy, which is going to be pretty consistent all through 2023. Now, we've also got some very important changes this year in terms of planets. Saturn, March the 7th, into your sector of the future, your highest values and your friendships. We also have Pluto briefly going into Aquarius from the 23rd of March. Mars in the sign of Aries right through to the 25th of March, then starts moving through each of the zodiac signs, as usual in 6-week bursts. But then, May the 16th, Jupiter arrives in your sign. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, and traditionally known as the planet of fortune, is going to be with you for 1 year and 9 days. So it's back into its more usual pattern, and that's something that is going to bring some real opportunities. But the North Node, being in your sign, of course, is now from the 18th of January 2022. On the 13th of July, it's going to reverse into your 12th house. We also have a solar eclipse in your 12th house, a new moon in your 12th house. We also have a solar eclipse in your 6th house. The 12th house very much about the psychological domain, the 6th house the physical domain, and that total lunar eclipse which occurred on the 8th of November. We have a mirror lunar eclipse on the 5th and 6th of May, exactly almost identical, but just in a mirror image, because this one of course will be in Scorpio, not Taurus. So that's very much about your relationships. So there's so much to break down and share with you. And then once I've given you the framework as we go into the year, I'm going to go through each of the months in precise detail, sharing about the Mercury retrograde, sharing about your ruler Venus being in the sign of Leo for 4.5 long months, and an incredible moment of opportunity on the 1st of June when the North Node meets Jupiter in your sign. So much exciting stuff. But if you would like to get your year 2023 personal horoscope forecast, please give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, and I will give you the rest of year 2022 free if you order in 22. or 12 months from the time of order in 23, plus your personal roadmap, your character analysis, which can guide you for the rest of your life, and all for 30% off. Please see the link beneath this video. And finally, if you're new to my channel, I'd be delighted if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you've already done so, thank you so much for being with me. So Taurus, let's just go through some of those big ingresses, those big planetary repositions of this year. So Saturn, this is going to be talked about a lot. Saturn moves from your sector of work and responsibility and obligation into your sector of where you network, the people you hang out with. The 11th house is your highest values. Now, Saturn is the co-ruler of the sign of Aquarius, which is the 11th house. So Saturn for you, in a way, is in its home zone. But of course, practically, it's in Pisces, which is a sign of emotion. So your emotions around the things you believe in, around your friendships, are going to be what Saturn's asking you to look at right through to when it moves in 2025 into the sign of Aries. So also the 11th house is about your future. And if you're on a trajectory which doesn't really feel that it's working for you any longer, Saturn could break something down and ask you to restart it. But see this as an opportunity. Now Pluto moving briefly into Aquarius on the 23rd of March, that for you is to do with those responsibilities again. So it may not happen this year, but I think the chances are it can definitely happen from a year's time, that your work situation will radically alter in the coming years. But Jupiter moving into your sign on May the 16th is really exciting, because this is an opportunity to really set free your individuality. Uranus has been pushing you to do this for some while, and it is retrograde at the start of this year, and of course we'll go back into a retrograde later on in 23. But Uranus has been pushing you to be a little bit more provocative, but also with the help of that cluster of energy which has been in the sign of Capricorn, to experiment more, to be a little bit more in tune with the need to shake things up and not necessarily stay with the status quo, which is something you can have a big appreciation for. So Jupiter moving into your sign is a chance for you to recast your identity in a really vibrant way, but Uranus has been pushing you to do this for some while anyway. But the North Node reversing into your 12th house is a more psychological influence, and because we have a solar eclipse there this year, along with a new moon and Cardinal Quadrant 1 from the spring equinox, it is going to be important to toggle the individual stuff of Jupiter and Uranus with the more psychological activity in the sign of Aries, and that more directional and higher principle energy that Saturn is going to be examining. Now, as you came into this new year, there was on the 8th of November an incredibly difficult lunar eclipse, and it occurred in your sign. But it was conjunct Uranus, and opposite was the Sun in Scorpio. So this is very much about your relationships. But because Saturn was intersecting both positions almost exactly in what's known as a T-square, it may be that a relationship issue is something that you're still grappling with as you come into this new year. Now, this relationship issue could be of a professional kind. It could be how you're fitting in within a corporation or a business, or it could be within your family, or it could be about a personal alliance. And because Uranus is a very provocative and also very unsettled influence, if you have been feeling unhappy in a relationship, I think that's going to be quite a big theme as you prepare to enter year 2023. But on the 21st of December, we had Cardinal Quadrant 4 for 2022. But that meant that we still had another 10 days to go before the end of the year. So therefore, because this influences a 13-week period, around about the next 11 and a half weeks, the first 11 and a half weeks of 2023 are still going to be influenced by that very important event. Now, of course, the Sun will have moved into Capricorn at 0 degrees, but Jupiter's in your 12th house when this event occurs at 0 degrees Aries. So the potential to feel that emotional issues can be amplified and take on a life force of their own is very strong, to be honest. Also, the moon is in the sign of Sagittarius, which, along with the midpoint's there as well, the balance of the moon and the sun is in Sagittarius. So for you, that's house 8. That's the furnace. That's where we go through big transformations. Can be about ends, but also about beginnings. But it's also where we're most invested. But because Mars is opposite the moon, quite a turbulent energy can be created between where we share finances, but also where we share intimacies. And the moon opposite Mars can create great polarity and quite explosive energies at times. Now, because the midpoint is also in a square with Neptune in your 11th house that Saturn's set to move into, is your sector of principles. So something around money or shared finances, I think, or perhaps it is to do with jealousy or control, may be issues that you're thinking very carefully about as this new year dawns. Now, the solar return. This is that moment when the new year begins. This provides a snapshot of what you can expect throughout 2023. And this year begins with Mars in retrograde in your second house. So that's very much to do with a desire to improve your financial lot. But of course, we're all dealing with some collective headwinds in terms of increased costs. But Mars is wanting you to make the most of opportunities, and it actually at the turn of the year forges a sensational link with Jupiter, the planet of opportunity. But that's in your 12th house initially, so your instincts or past skills, qualifications or contacts can be remodeled in a new way or reconnected with that can be very helpful to your quest to improve your financial lot in this new year. But Mercury begins this year in your 9th house of travel and contracts in retrograde. So throughout this year, you're going to have to be very careful about what you say, but also what you commit to any kind of document. So if you answer an email or even a text message, make sure that you choose your words with great care, particularly if you are needing to speak about an agreement or some kind of situation which does require the ultimate precision. But your ruler is Venus, and that's conjunct Pluto right at the start of this year. And Venus conjunct Pluto in the 9th house can give us an enormous desire to get to the truth of what a relationship really means. Equally, if you travel this year, despite the fact that Mercury is retrograde in your 9th house, which could create some snags, I think it's possible that you could have a fated connection to somebody, or you could meet someone involved with law. It could be a solicitor, it could be some kind of counsellor or advisor, but someone who has knowledge can be incredibly impressive and helpful to your journey and quest in 2023. Now, the midpoint at the turn of the year is actually just under 7 degrees in Pisces, which for you is your sector of friendship, but it is squaring with Mars. And this is going to be a theme in the first half of this year, that your values may not necessarily mesh with someone you've been involved with in the past. Could be a partner, could be a group situation. It could be that your own values are just evolving in a different way. But getting the balance between being real with how the world is evolving and how we earn money and the more idealistic side of your nature could prove to be one of the tests of 2023. Now, we also have those two lunations in your 12th house, and I will share more about those shortly, but just be aware that embracing the side of your nature that may not be so obvious is going to be important. But equally, it's an opportunity to expand your awareness of the way that we all interact with one another, often in unspoken ways. So the more psychological domain definitely provides opportunities for you this year too. But on January the 12th, Mars ends its retrograde in your second house. So any frustration you may have been feeling around about finances, and remember you've got that terrific angle with Jupiter that can support you all through the year, then I think you're going to be much more on the front foot. Mercury also goes direct on the 18th of January. So I think that's going to be something that we're all collectively pleased about. Now on January the 21st, there's a new moon in Aquarius. It comes straight away. This is your sector of work and responsibility, but your ruler Venus on the same day is crunch tackled by Saturn. If you are in a professional relationship where you find someone really quite tricky, it might show up in the following 4 weeks, and you may be pushed to speak your truth, even if it feels that there can be some implications from doing so. Now on January the 22nd, Uranus ends its retrograde in your sign. That's something to welcome. Uranus is very much the freedom fighter. It's the planet mythology-wise that governs the heavens, so above as below, and Uranus very much involved with astrology. But it's not at its best in your sign, but its retrograde has given you an opportunity to think about what sort of freedoms you want and where you're prepared to be more sacrificing of your personal space and more committed to another person. So I think it coming to an end just brings that period of introspection to a close. But on February the 20th, we have a Pisces new moon, but this one is in a conjunction with Saturn. So the Aquarius new moon wasn't in conjunction with Saturn, it was Venus. So this is another insight about how certain friendships or associations could make way this year. And of course that may become much more obvious once Saturn moves into Pisces, but over the following month also you may find yourself setting your hopes for future movement forwards may be tempered by the more realistic influence of Saturn. So again, it's like trying to find that balance between how we'd like life to be and how it's really going to be, and that is also going to be a factor on that Pisces new moon. Now on March the 7th, Saturn makes that arrival in your 11th house, which I've kind of outlined to some degree for you. It's going to be in this area through to the 25th of May 2025, but then it moves into your 12th house, which to be honest could be more challenging. The 11th house, friendships, those higher values, future plans, where we network, what really motivates us in a non-material way. So it's a spiritual influence to a degree, and Saturn is kind of saying, are there some areas that you need to work at around this? So for example, if you have been caught up in the more material plane, Saturn may remind you of the importance to have deeper motivations that go beyond possessions. But also, I think critically, if there are people that have been a part of your world for some while, are their values and your values at the point when they're going to start to diverge? I think it's possible that some weaker members of your group could make way, but newer people can come into your situation who are going to be more appropriate for the person you are now or are becoming, and could end up being very solid citizens. So that's really exciting. Saturn doesn't have to be all bad by any means at all. Now on March the 14th, we do have the third exact square between Mars and Neptune. We had two last year. Mars and Neptune, when they're in the square, is quite a tricky influence. People who have this in their natal horoscope can be people with a penchant for pursuing things that maybe are considered to be a little bit naughty. So March the 20th sees the spring equinox and Cardinal Quadrant 1. Now, usually at this time of the year, you probably find yourself with a stronger than usual need just to take stock, just to have a little bit more time for yourself. Totally understandable, because the energy of the 12th house is perfect to do that. This is a time for, just really enjoying some spa days or some alternative therapies, and just having a little bit of personal care and relaxation. But when this event occurs, the midpoint is in the sign of Pisces, and it's conjunct Neptune, and also they're still in that right angle with Mars. So anxieties over money may be clouding your situation, or once again, is there somebody around you that you once had a really good rapport with, that you're realizing that there is a shift in the relationship? There isn't as much trust as there was before. And I think that is a theme for this year, unfortunately. But what Saturn will do is take out of your situation those people that aren't right for you, but it will help you to build back into your situation the people who can be much more appropriate. But that means transition, and transitions can be painful and of course not always very easy. But then on March the 21st, with the new moon on top of the spring equinox, we have the square between that event and also Mars. And this is because the Aries new moon is so at the start of Aries, and Mars is really getting to the end of its journey through the sign of Gemini. So if you like, it's a disassociate square, 12th third, even though technically for you Mars is in the second. And that too can create some sense that maybe some information that's doing the rounds could get under your skin a little bit if you let it. However, ironically, Mars does actually forge a very positive link with Saturn. Now, Mars is about thrust, Saturn's about consolidation, so something could shape up or start to shape up that's actually very promising. And with this event, also Venus is in your sign, and of course that's your ruler. So if you want to give yourself a little bit of a personal makeover, that would be a great thing to do when maybe your physical and even emotional energy could be residing a little lower. But on March the 23rd, Pluto makes its way right to the top of your scope. Now, it's only going to be there through to June the 11th this year before going back into your 9th house. It just depends when the sun is in your situation. If your sun is right at the start of Taurus, you're going to be much more affected by Pluto this year. If you're further into Taurus, I don't think you'll get the effect of it this year at all, to be honest. But the transition of Pluto into the 10th house means that your role in life is almost certain to change over the next 13 or 14 years in one way or another. It's just when that event occurs for you. And a lot of that is decided where your personal planets are in your natal horoscope. Now, April the 20th, 21st, depending on where you are in the world, we have that second Aries lunation, this one the solar eclipse, but it's also conjunct Jupiter. Now, Jupiter governs the sign of Sagittarius, which can be about exaggeration But it also governs Pisces, which is much more about the spiritual domain. And because these are combining in your 12th house, essentially a very Piscean location, the spiritual side of your nature can definitely be influenced by this a powerful event which provides a backdrop energy for the next 6 months. But they are square Pluto. This is one of the most powerful aspects in astrology. And I think essentially, if there's something unjust going on in your world, or you're living with a situation which doesn't feel right, the truth of that situation is going to be very hard to resist over the next 6 months. Now, Mercury also goes retrograde on May the 1st. Now, in your sign as well. So something that you have wanted to make progress with may stall. But if that does happen, as usually is the case with Mercury retrogrades, it helps us to rethink. By the time we emerge from the journey, we actually realise that the delay was often for a reason. So just be mindful of that. Now on May the 5th and 6th, we get that lunation, this time in Scorpio. So this is the mirror of the Taurus lunar eclipse, which occurred on the 8th of November. But this one also involves Uranus. And so how amazing is that? The symmetry of astrology is sometimes quite breathtaking. So once more, this is about balancing your individuality with where you're connected to someone else. But with Uranus in the mix, if you're feeling restless and unhappy, this could push you out of a relationship that's really not right for you. Fortunately, on May the 15th, Mercury goes direct. May the 16th, Jupiter makes its way into your sign. Now this really is time for some celestial trumpets. We have Taurus arriving in your sign, Jupiter. So the court is happy of the king of Taurus, that Jupiter, the jester, the planet of endeavour, of opportunity, of fortune, of expansion, of travel, and independence, and crucially of luck, is with you for 1 year and 9 days. It's gone through these very unusual patterns in the last couple of years, going through 2 zodiac signs each year, and now it's with you for over a year. So this can really help you to get on the front foot, and it could be a new beginning that's going to emerge for you. But it may be a new beginning that requires you to let go of something else. And it's important to treat astrology with great respect. It's not always about something amazing around the corner. It's often about making choices, and sometimes those choices are difficult. But if you do want to create that new future that Uranus and Pluto have been pushing you towards for some time now, to be more radical in your approach, Jupiter will help absolutely indubitably. I'm quite pleased with that. On May the 7th, May the 17th, also through till June the 16th, within 3 degrees, Jupiter goes conjunct the North Node, which is reversing in your sign, preparing to make way into the sign of Aries on the 12th of July. And exactly on the 1st of June, they come into conjunction. So some opportunities for 1 month, from May the 16th, May the 17th, really is some big opportunity. Some fortune can be attracted to you. You're often very charismatic in that very earthy, sensual way, and some kind of big opportunity can come to you across those days. Now also on May the 19th, a wonderful Taurus new moon in your sign, which is forging a sextile to Mars, now located in Cancer. So the first third angle of this particular axis is wonderful for expressing your ideas passionately, with conviction, and really trying to recreate your new reality. So you've emerged from the more reflective energy of that Aries new moon in the 12th house, and now you're moving into the moment, and it can mean the pace of life is going to pick up quite considerably. Now on May the 20th, Mars powers its way into the sign of Leo, where it likes to be, because it can really show off here. People who are performers often have Mars in Leo, whether they're thespians or musicians. So if you've ever wanted to showcase your talents, it's a great opportunity to do so. But because it's in your 4th house, it may be that a talent that you can work with at home, especially if you are a maker, an artist, work with technology. You in some way can visualize things in a very vivid and animated way, photography for example, then certainly Mars can help you to shine through till the 10th of July. Now May the 21st, however, there could be a mighty row going on in your situation, because Mars goes into a direct opposition with Pluto. Now, these in different ways are very much to do with will, and Pluto can reveal things that maybe we don't even appreciate in terms of our desires. And for you, it's in the 10th house. So it's about you wanting recognition. And because Mars is in your 4th house, where it can be a bit defensive, if you're not getting the recognition you feel you deserve, it may be that you're going to speak out in that inimitable, very direct and sometimes blunt way when you're really stirred. So some kind of clash is possible around the 21st of May. But June the 1st, just a reminder, this is the exact date of Jupiter and the North Node in conjunction. So that really can be the peak of some fortunate developments. But June the 6th is an extremely important day for your year, because your ruler, Venus, makes its way into your 4th house, whence it will be for 4.5 months. Thinking of moving, Taurus, thinking of improving. You're going to have all your natural ability to design and create that a really tasteful, for some Taurus, this could be very contemporary way of presenting your environment. For others, it could be very classical. It just depends. But Venus in your 4th house for such a long period of time does suggest that your home environment needs to be particularly soothing to you, and you will take the action, particularly with Mars there as well, to make things happen. However, of course, Venus also influences not just loot and aesthetics, it also influences relationships. So Venus in the 4th house could see you wanting a child. It could see you wanting to meet somebody who's a more nurturing and kindly and affectionate person. And there is that window of opportunity. However, on June the 11th, Pluto returns back to your 9th house. You'll deal with this fine, because you've been dealing with it since 2008. June the 17th, however, sees Saturn slam on the brakes. It's going to be in retrograde through to the 4th of November. If there are going to be some changes of long-term plan, changes of friendship, changes in your immediate social circle, changes in your higher values, the chances are they're going to happen between now and the 4th of November. June the 18th, however, sees the Gemini new moon, which for you is really sweet, because this is the 2nd house, very much in keeping with the values of your sign. But this one, squares Neptune. So we got another clash. Someone is going to potentially disappoint you yet again. Or perhaps you're continuing to be over generous to the wrong person. And once more, the planets are reminding you of the need to set your boundaries, Taurus. Very important. Which brings us to June the 21st and the summer solstice and Cardinal Quadrant 2. So we're setting the tone for the next 13 weeks. Often for all of us, very much about our environment, but for you in particular, it's to do with your ideas, the 3rd house, the people you interact with every day can be to do with neighbours, siblings, can be to do with digital technology and so forth. But on this event, Venus is conjoining Mars in your 4th house. If you encounter someone at a family gathering, or there could be someone makes an introduction through your family, there could be a really charismatic connection between you. It depends on your natal chart, to be honest, but essentially Venus, your ruler, conjunct with Mars is one of the most alluring of all influences, and the amplification and charisma that it gets in the sign of Leo is like no other. But because for you that's the 4th house, how this comes about could be through someone you know. It could be that you get closer to someone you already know, because in one way or another you're both able to reveal a little bit more of your inner selves that opens up a door, and then another door, and then another door. Because I feel that that's what happens when we meet people. We can push open a few doors and we think, hey, this is really promising, and then we push the next door and it doesn't spring open, and then we realize it can't really be emotionally as intimate as we like. And it can be friendly, but it's not going to go deeper into their soul, and they're not going to get deeper into ours. But I think something really interesting could happen around over the next 13 weeks around someone linked to your family or linked to where you live. If you do meet someone, it could be that, you know, playing mind host and cooking a lovely meal can be a wonderfully seductive way of actually getting to know them a lot better. Also, Jupiter in your sign is forging a tremendous link with Saturn, planet of resistance, in a positive angle with a planet of expansion. So they balance each other very well. So for the 13 weeks from June the 21st, I think it looks very promising for you. Now, July the 12th does see the North Node reverse out of your sign and joins up with Aries for the first time in 18.5 years. If you think back to then, you'll get an idea of exactly what you can expect between now and the end of this year. Essentially this and that solar eclipse and the new moon in Aries are asking you to become much more in touch with perhaps some of your vulnerabilities, your frailties, the things you fear, the things that maybe you keep out of public circulation and sight. The more you get closer to those strands deep within you, the more you will become whole. That's really the point here. So the North Node is a nominal point, but it's very much to do with our collective direction of travel. And essentially moving into Aries, it's asking us to all start to rethink our approach. Have we been too material over the years? Do we need to think more about using our individual ingenuity in order to spark possibilities? But for you, it's about embracing your ability to understand the psyche of yourself and of those you encounter. Now, on July the 17th, the Cancer new moon, often lovely for you because the ruler of Cancer is exalted in your sign, which is the moon. So Cancer new moon is in your 3rd house, ideas, siblings, interactions with neighbours, but forging a lovely link with Uranus in your sign. The following month could see some surprise and quick moving developments. July the 23rd, Venus goes into a retrograde through to September the 3rd. This is going to make you think more deeply. The charisma of Venus and Mars together in Leo is undoubted, but Venus going into a retrograde makes you think more about the deeper. You know, Venus can be a little bit superficial, especially through its influence of Libra. Through its influence in your sign, it's much more sensual. So you're thinking more about things like the practical side of a relationship. You know, could we live together? Where do we want to live? What kind of furnishings or decor would we have? who would do or contribute what in the relationship. Will my family relate well to this person or not? These could all be the things that are going through your mind on this retrograde. Even if you're single, it can help you to get more clarity in what you need from your deepest relationships. August the 1st, Aquarius, full moon. Hey, okay, 10th house for you. Something to do with your work may make a call on your emotional time. But Mars is forging a terrific angle with Jupiter on that event, which can give you a lot of spark and a lot of get-go. But Mercury is in an opposition with Saturn. A conversation, perhaps with a friend, perhaps with someone you're romantically linked to, perhaps if they're unsupportive about your professional situation, that could really create quite a lot of coldness in a friendship or an emotional connection. But Mars in that tremendous angle to Jupiter, which remember was part of your solar return at the start of this year. Well, it's repeated, but they're both in different homes. August the 16th, there's a wonderful Leo new moon, and it is conjunct Venus. So that's really quite beautiful, because that gives you an added opportunity to really understand about what you want in terms of your emotional world, how you're going to feel secure, whether it's in a spiritual or psychological way or a more physical way. August the 23rd, however, Mercury slams on the brakes for the third time this year. Well, of course, it starts the year with the brakes on. Take your brakes off as you come into the year next year. So Mercury retrograde for the third time is in Virgo, which is house 5 for you. If you're trying to get together with friends or have a date, you know the drill. It could be changed last minute. But remember, Mercury retrograde is a time to remake, remold, reconfigure and go again. It doesn't have to be all bad. August the 27th sees Mars move into a location that it's actually detrimented in, but for you it's actually a good location because it's the 6th house, so through to the 12th of October, more physical vitality. August the 29th, Uranus slams on the brakes again, and it will be in retrograde through to the rest of the year. Once more, you're needing to juggle where you can give up your space and your authority and autonomy over your own self, and where you can be more committed. August the 31st, a challenging full moon. This is in Pisces, your sector of the future, and it's conjunct Saturn. Once more, you're being asked to think about the value of the people in your world, but also about your future hopes and plans. If you are spending too much time with friends and not enough time on your own personal needs, projects, and personal expression, this particular full moon pushes you to rethink. However, on September the 3rd, Venus goes direct. If you have been having some home improvements done, they could be sorted by then. September the 4th, however, Jupiter does go into a retrograde, and it's going to last through to the 30th of December. So essentially, something that you felt very hopeful about earlier this year, and of course you had that very lovely Jupiter angle with Mars on the Aquarius full moon. Well, Jupiter's slowing down, and it can be a big deal. So maybe something you were making progress towards, it isn't going to go quite as you thought. There may be a need to refocus, throttle down and think again. Don't be too dispirited. It's just part of the process. However, the Virgo new moon on September the 15th is fabulous. This lifts your spirits again, and it says to you, look, you've got to dare to be different, because it's forging a really lovely angle to Uranus. Now Mercury goes direct on the 15th too, which is terrific. The 23rd, we have the autumnal equinox, and in other words, we have the third cardinal quadrant of the year. The midpoint is actually in your opposite sign, and it's opposite Jupiter, despite its retrograde in your sign. Despite the fact that you may have had some concern about relationships, I think that in the following 13 weeks can bring some extra life, vibrancy, and even opportunity. However, the Sun in Libra is in a quincunx with Pisces in your 11th house. Once more, your idealism is being tested by the need to be functional and practical. October the 12th, however, Mars goes into your opposite sign. If ever there was a time to assert yourself, over the following 6 weeks is a great chance to do so. The Libra solar eclipse of October the 14th, however, is asking you to think about your welfare in terms of things like sugars, calorific goodies, booze, how much exercise you do or don't get. Is there an impact on your overall situation because you're really letting your discipline drop a little bit, which of course we all do, or most of us do, most of the time. Keep it quiet about me. And so that's an eclipse of virtue, basically, which I know is not very sexy, but that's what it is. But then on October the 28th, the lunar eclipse in Taurus is opposite the Sun in Scorpio. But unlike last year when we had that November the 8th lunar eclipse in your sign, which was very disruptive, this one actually brings reward because it's in a lovely angle to Saturn. So despite Saturn potentially clearing the way with some people, it could bring some new people in, especially with the Scorpio new moon of November the 1st, your sector of relating, and that also links brilliantly with Saturn. So new people are coming in, and these are really solid citizens, the type of celestial players you want in your world. 4th of November, Saturn goes direct. Some of your fears about the future will melt away. November the 24th, Mars dives deep into your 8th house. Now, Taurus, you and I both know how seriously sensual you can be, and there's every chance you're going to be in the run-up to Christmas. December the 12th also sees a new moon in your 8th house conjunct Mars. Oh my word, this could be very, very good for business, but also very good for loot, and also very good for sex. But of course it needs to be with the person who is really going to be very uplifting and positive in terms of your energy. Now, December the 13th does see Mercury go into a retrograde, but then we have Cardinal Quadrant 4 of 2023, the winter solstice. The midpoint is actually Pisces and it's conjunct Saturn. So once more, you're not being let off the need to rinse out of your world the people who are not good for you, but also stay resolutely on track for the things that you know are good for you spiritually, even if they're not easy to attain. Now, the moon just in Taurus is squaring in a disassociate way with Pluto very late in Capricorn. What does that mean? I think it means that you'll need to sort of relate to situations very instantly. Could be blocked by someone who needs to in some way be the top dog. That's a bit disappointing. But the Sun and Mercury conjunction in Capricorn is in a tremendous angle with Jupiter. So I actually feel this year ends on a much more stable front. We do still have the retrograde. It rewinds into your 6th house on December the 23rd. If you are posting anything late, it needs to, you need to make sure that you address it correctly and all the rest of it. And then to bring the curtain down on quite a year, Jupiter goes direct on the 30th of December, and that's going to be something you truly, truly celebrate. So, to recap, the summary for this year is an enormous opportunity with Jupiter in your sign to cut the mustard when it comes to your individuality. But all that energy in the sign of Aries is asking you to stay in touch with that more sensitive and sometimes vulnerable side of all of us, that sometimes we can be reluctant to look at or reluctant to share about. But that 11th house energy with Saturn, with those several midpoints, and also the role of Neptune and the way that connects with the Gemini new moon, with Mars in Gemini. It's all suggesting to you that there may be some people that you're associated with that you may be fond of, they may be decent people, but energetically are the right people for you. And I think as you burst into this new year, a relationship matter really is to the fore, and you may need to make some serious decisions this year about who you're going to be with in the longer term. But if there is going to be a change, see that transition as being something that will take you to a place where you can be even more authentically yourself. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.